The scene opens with a fight scene in a heated gunfight between a group of armed men and some kind of elite cyborg soldier. It turns out that this guy is actually an Imperial guard. He reveals that everything he is doing is for the Empire to get rid of the enemies who pose a threat to the Emperor and the Empire's people. The gunmen start to shoot at him, and as they unleash a rain of bullets on the red-eyed soldier, he just stands there and admits that there is no other reason for the existence of the Imperial Guard. The massive bullets speed toward him like small missiles, but just when they're about to hit him, he opens fire on the men and wipes them all out with a single wave of bullets. In the blink of an eye, all the men are down, and all that we see left are their corpses lying in a pool of blood and his gun smoking. After he takes out the threat, someone comes out of the shadows to give the Imperial Guard a round of applause. As we can already tell, this is a futuristic world, and in this Earth of the future, technology has developed significantly. However, this did not mean hope for humanity. Due to the unending war caused by lack of resources, the Earth continued to be destroyed, and as a result, humanity kept expanding into other planets. In the end, life on Earth ended due to an invasion of unknown alien species. However, the survivors of humanity wandered through space and ended up finding a planet similar to Earth after a long journey. Because of this, humanity decided to call this new planet. They called this place Novice, which basically means new home. They sent out the coordinates of this new home to all of space. With this, all humans who had been scattered throughout space began gathering at Novus. Just like life was on Earth, humans also created different nations and empires on this new planet. There's the Balato Federation, where countless alien species are mixed amongst the Earthlings. The Accretion Empire was also created, and this is a place that possesses a powerful army of soldiers with machinated physiques, pretty similar to what we saw in the first scene. Then, there's the Holy Korite Alliance, with priests who possess force energy as well as mental fortitude. Sure, the humans were able to find a new home on Novus, and it all started out pretty okay, but it didn't take long for the same issues faced on Earth to catch up with them again. As you can imagine, there were finite resources even on Novus, and as a result, the humans once again saw themselves preparing for another world war, each nation desperate to acquire total control of the resources available on the planet. The story officially begins in the city of Accretia, in the machination lab of the Accretion Empire. An Imperial guard like the one from earlier enters the lab to meet up with some other soldiers, and the boss immediately tells him that he's up next to something. The bearded guy with a crazy look on his face claims that the guards have bad luck and informs them that they are going to be subject to a lot of comparisons. The scar-faced guy claims that this is where the guard is supposed to show the Emperor what he's capable of. That being said, he warns him not to forget that this is a very important day for trainees. This bearded guy is Hamilas Castoria, the Accretia Imperial Guard commander. Hearing what the commander just said, one of the other Imperial Guard trainees in the lab boldly states that they'll soon find out who the unlucky one really is. Commander Hamilas Castoria is taken aback when he hears that the young trainee's name is Luca, because apparently, the name is a big deal in the Empire, and the scar-faced man hopes that he lives up to the expectations. In response, the spiky-haired trainee claims that he will do just that. Like all the other trainees in the room, Luca gets ready for the contest ahead. He wears his helmet, thinking about how he needs to be at least capable of dodging and blocking bullets. After all, it's a necessary skill in order to become an official part of the Imperial Guards. At this point, you can tell that Luca is our protagonist in this story. The young trainee has completed all the simulation training in the most extreme situations. As far as he's concerned, he's a soldier training of the Imperial Guards with heightened spatial awareness thanks to the senses and perception reinforcement procedure. With this in mind, Luca pumps himself up for the challenge ahead. He sits up completely and enters the room to take out the threats and prove that he deserves to be an Imperial Guard. Right now, his opponents are 5 death row inmates with cheap cybernetic equipment. Even though these guys are hardened criminals who would fight to the death with everything they've got, our boy is still certain that the fight would be a piece of cake. As far as he's concerned, this whole test will take him only 10 seconds at most. The criminals charge him with their weapons and he casually braces himself for their attacks. The first guy at the front takes out a djinn and tries to shoot Luca, but before he even knows what's happening, the Imperial Guard in training effortlessly takes the guy's head off with a single slash. He decapitates the guy and then proceeds to finish the other criminals, who are absolutely horrified by what just happened. They're all scared shitless after seeing him literally take off someone's head. As much as Luca knows that this is a really easy win for him, he also remembers that this is an opportunity for him to make a good impression on the Emperor. Luca knows that he needs to do something absolutely noteworthy, but the quest now is whether he will be able to do that. As far as he knows, he's never done it before, so now it seems almost impossible, but he just has to make it happen here and now. All of the terrified criminals brace themselves for a fight to the death, and Luca does the same, determined to wipe them out and earn his place in the Imperial Guard. He knows that he needs to heighten his senses to the maximum. Our boy goes into beast mode and annihilates the opponents in a brutal display of ruthlessness and power. The commander can't help but smile when he sees just how amazing Luca is. After a few seconds, all the criminals are down and lying in a huge pool of blood. He finishes them off with ease, and by the time he's done, you can tell from the look on his face just how much energy has had to be used. He catches his breath as blood drips down from his nose, and even though his body got some real damage, he's very glad because he finally did it. He finally surpassed his limits, and now he's confident that it should be enough to raise his value in the eyes of the commander and the rest of the empire. After his test, he walks back to the commander feeling really proud of himself, and the scar-faced man is truly blown away by his display. The man didn't think Luca would use ballistic trajectory control to take out the enemies because it's a skill that shouldn't even be in the curriculum yet. In response, our boy simply states that he just copied the guy that went before him. Hearing this, the commander informs him that the guy he's talking about was from a renowned household and that he was already taught the curriculum in advance. The scar-faced man proceeds to remind Luca that the guy is different from him, who's from an orphanage. Of course, this is not the kind of compliment Luca expected after putting on a show for the commander, so he just turns to look at the man, feeling pretty offended. At this point, the comma admits that he likes our boy and promises to give him a gift. Luca is taken aback when he hears this because he didn't expect that from the hardened commander. He turns around wondering what gift the man is talking about, and then in a shocking twist, the man reaches for his face and grabs a hold of our boy's eye. The other trainees are horrified when they see what's going on, but the spiky-haired boy doesn't even flinch as the crazy commander takes out his eye from the socket. Blood gushes out instantly, but still, Luca doesn't even react. After taking out the boy's eye, the commander squishes it, feeling very impressed. He can tell that Luca must have done great on his pain tolerance training. I mean, there were so many other ways to test the boy's pain tolerance without making him half blind. But I guess this is how stuff like this works in the Accretion Empire. Anyway, after crushing the boy's eye, the man once again admits that he likes him, and Luca just responds by stating how glad he is to hear this. Apparently, our boy doesn't even mind that his eye was just destroyed because he would have gotten rid of it eventually since it's not good enough for him. It turns out that he's been wanting an eye that has the feature to predict trajectories, so now that the commander has helped him with the first step, he bluntly requests the better eye that he desires. This is a really weird mindset to have, and some of the other trainees are even overwhelmed by how extreme Luca is, but the aspiring Imperial Guard finds it to be completely normal. Later, we're introduced to another trainee, number 12, named Ille. The blondie claims that he wanted to talk to Luca, who happens to be trainee number 32. Ille just came out of nowhere and stood by our boy's door, so Luca is taken aback when he sees a stranger there talking to him. He's stunned for a second, and Ille quickly realizes how awkward the atmosphere is. He gets nervous too and immediately apologizes, admitting that his approach was way too sudden. Luca figures that the guy is just nervous, so he tells Ille that he can come in, so the blondie does just that. Once they're both in the room, Ille tells Luca that he was really good back there and admits that he was really impressed by his display. Most people will be excited to receive a compliment, but our boy is clearly not in the mood for that. He bluntly tells Ille that he's in the wrong place if he's wishing to exchange praises, and then proceeds to call the blondie young master. It turns out that this visitor also comes from a pretty powerful family. Just from his aura, our boy can tell that Ille Karthika is the son of the famous noble household Karthika. Hearing this, the blondie just laughs, and concludes that becoming Luca a friend is going to be a lot more difficult than he thought. Logically speaking, our boy knows that there's no need for him to be so aggressive to someone from a noble household. Luca figures that he's just being mean because he's envious of the blonde-haired boy, but besides that, he's not exactly in the mood to talk, so the bottom line is that he's just tired for now. Ille is disappointed by the first response he gets, but he's still determined to make the talented one-eyed fella his friend, so he comes up with another approach. All of a sudden, Ille takes out a blue pill and offers it to Luca, leaving our boy stunned. Ille claims that this is what he came to give him, revealing that the pill will decrease his sensitivity to enable him to rest better. Even though Luca knows how helpful the pill might be to him, he's not in any hurry to be indebted to the noble boy, so he immediately rejects it, stating that he does need the pill. Ille tries to insist, informing him that he won't be able to train properly in the morning if he doesn't get a good rest overnight. He feels that Luca should know that mental fortitude can't carry him through everything. After a little persuasion, our boy finally gives in and takes the blue pill from the rich kid. He's reluctant to put it in his mouth because he's still trying to inspect it. The moment he holds the pill, he can tell that it's different from the knockoffs that are being made and sold in the streets. He doesn't let the noble boy know this though. At this point, he figures that it would hurt to be nice to the boy too. So, he tells Ille that he was also pretty good earlier, and admits that he even copied his techniques. Hearing this, the blondie reveals that he actually has a mechanical eye for combat, explaining that it's not hard for him to calculate trajectory. As such, he couldn't help but be blown away when Luca copied him flawlessly. As far as he's concerned, our boy's actions were much more impressive since he pulled them off with nothing but his instincts. Ille could also see that the commander even took notice of Luca during his display, which is something that does usually happen. He feels that the commander really took an interest in Luca and suggests that it's the reason why the man is giving him a mechanical eye out of his own pocket. After hearing all of this, our boy simply waves off the praise and claims that all he did was work really hard through the training. After all, nobility is excellence while the lower classes are powerless. Or at least, that's the way life is in the Accretian Empire. Luca is very much aware of his background and what it means to even be in the position he has right now. He has a shot at becoming a valuable asset to the Empire and being a lower-class citizen. He knows very well that he can't let go of a rare opportunity like this. Ille is just speechless after listening to the one-eyed boy speak. He can understand what Luca means by this because he's familiar with the privileges of being a noble and he's seen the unfair firsthand. With this in mind, he suggests that there were people who paid money to manipulate the results of the selection exams. He's sure that Luca passed it after seeing what the boy is capable of, but he also believes that there are people here with them now who failed and aren't even supposed to be at this stage. Our boy is pretty shocked when he hears this because he didn't even think it was possible for the results to be manipulated. In response, the blondie admits that there's no proof. But still, this is something that he strongly believes and he's not afraid to admit it. Ille tells Luca that people like him without any support system have never failed the advanced soldier cultivation process, and he believes that this is how such people made it that far with their skills. After listening to Ille say such sketchy things about the elite, our boy is really surprised because he never imagined that he'd hear a noble tell him that all nobles are not excellent. Our one-eyed hero never considered the possibility of foul play in the selections, so this makes him wonder exactly what Ille is trying to tell him. He's still trying to wrap his head around what's going on and why this conversation is happening when all of a sudden, the noble boy stretches out his hand. He calls out to Luca and shows his the hand, urging him to shake it. Ille thinks that people like Luca are the ones meant to succeed, and so, he makes this clear before stating that he'll be cheering him on till the end. At first, our boy is taken aback by this gesture, but so far, he has not seen anything to make him not trust the blondie. So, he shakes his hand and admits that he's planning on being here till the end. After all, everything they're doing here is all for the Empire, and even though Luca looks terrifyingly determined to succeed, Ille just looks worried. This whole story follows the chronicles of a boy being raised as a military weapon in the tyrannical empire, Accretia. The story continues in a shooting range where the trainees are all basic at testing their accuracy with guns. Our boy is training right next to Ille, suggesting that he and the noble boy have become pretty close lately. We also see that he's gotten rid of the eye patch and is now sporting a very impressive bionic eye that's glowing actively as he prepares to take his shot. It's no surprise that the mechanical eye looks this cool since the commander personally sourced it for Luca. I guess losing his human eye wasn't such a bad thing after all, because now, he's about to become the most formidable shooter around. He activates the eye, and it begins to calculate the trajectory so that he can take the perfect shot. Our boy aims at the target, and as soon as the eye locks in, he pulls the trigger and unleashes the bullet. Shortly after the shooting practice is over, Ille takes a peek to see what Luca has been up to, and he's blown away when he sees how accurate the boy was. It turns out that Luca managed to shoot all the targets square in the head without missing a single shot. Seeing this, he begins to understand that the top student really is a different breed. Of course, our boy doesn't even say anything in response because he's not even sure what to say. He just remains silent and lets the noble boy do all the talking. Ille is really impressed with Luca's rapid progress and wonders if he's already getting used to the right eye that he transplanted recently. It's a really massive upgrade as far as the blondie is concerned, so he jokes about it being unfair that Luca is now this good with a gun too when he specializes in close combat. At this point, our boy finally responds, explaining that it's only natural that members of the guards are good with all types of weapons. Besides that, Luca also makes it clear that he does appreciate being patronized by the actual top student when it comes to shooting. It turns out that Ille was absolutely perfect during practice and somehow managed to shoot the target's head through the exact same hole without missing even once. The fact that he is this good and is still going on and on about Luca's shooting skills makes our boy a little offended because it's almost like he's messing with him. After Luca calls Ille out for being cheeky, the blondie laughs nervously and admits that shooting is actually his specialty. Leo can literally see the overconfidence oozing out of Ille's body, so he tells the blondie that he's going to surpass him pretty soon if he keeps being so nonchalant. In response, the noble boy simply states that he'll welcome such a possibility if it comes, and then reminds Luca that he meant what he said when he said he'll always be rooting for him. He goes on about how the Empire needs people like our boy, but the kid can't help but feel like Ille is just trying to mess with him. The blondie claims that the value of ability and talent is being diluted in the Empire, and states that even the powerless can be called talented in this era as long as they have status and power. However, Ille believes that things will be better if more naturally talented irregulars start to appear. The blondie feels that this is the only way that folks will be able to tell between those who are talented and those who aren't. Sure, the blondie has a point, but it does look like our boy appreciates his theory too much. To Luca, it sounds like Ille is criticizing the Empire's system, so he tells the noble boy exactly what he's thinking. He calls Ille out and reminds him that he won't be able to get away with it if he gets reported for what he just said. The consequences would be severe, and it wouldn't even matter if he is a Karthika because the Empire headquarters might consider the boy's theory to be treason. At first, it looks like Ille is shocked by Luca's subtle threat, but then all of a sudden, the noble boy cracks a smile because he knows that the guy is only trying to scare him. If Luca was really going to report him, he wouldn't even have said it, so Ille is certain that he won't say anything because he already knows that Luca is a good person. Either way, he thanks Luca for even worrying about him and nonchalantly walks away, feeling untouchable. Meanwhile, our boy watches the guy stroll away confidently, and it just pisses him off because he knows that Ille is right. He was never going to rat the noble boy out, so it's just annoying that the kid saw right through him without even trying. The story fast forwards 2 years into the future. It's the third quarter of the year right now, and it looks like the Imperial Guards are becoming really experienced. They're currently in transit, headed for their next mission. In one of the trucks, the commander lays down the instructions for the mission. For this training, he decides that Ille and Luca will act as platoon leaders, and as usual, he's very rigid about his instructions. He literally states that those who have a problem with his selections are free to get up and leave immediately. Of course, none of them dares to protest his decision, so he proceeds to state the instructions for this training mission. As usual, Ille looks really excited about the mission and is really anticipating some field action. On the other hand, Luca just looks absolutely locked in and ready to ace this test. Across the gorge not too far from them, there's a Korite outpost illegally stationed in their territory, so the commander tells them about it and makes it clear to them that this mission is to test their abilities on the field. That being said, the scary man reminds them that they have no need for prisoners. In other words, their mission is to kill every last enemy. After briefing them on what to do, they arrive on a cliff just above the outpost. The trainees get off and our boy takes the lead with his fellow platoon leader. Ille points out how this is their first real mission, and Luca simply wonders why he's saying the obvious. He asks the noble boy if he's nervous because he shouldn't be, since he's already killed in previous training sessions. Sure, they've executed death row criminals in the past and it should be like the same thing, but Ille is especially nervous now because this is the first time they'll actually be facing outside forces. The noble boy talks about how the Belatian Federation, the Holy Korite Alliance, and even the Accretia Empire all have planet Earth's humanity as ancestors. Hearing all of this, Luca just gets disappointed in Ille for getting all soft so quickly. So, he turns to the noble boy and reminds him that there's really no need to get lost in his emotions right now. They came here to battle and wipe out the enemy forces to defend their empire, so our boy really does care for a history lesson at this point. Luca urges his buddy to get his head back in the game and reminds him that there are several senior guards around too. Our boy knows all too well that the senior Imperial guards are not here to protect them from danger. There's an especially menacing full-body mechanical armor legion standing not too far back, and Luca knows for a fact that these guys are here to supervise with an iron fist. He feels that the senior guards might even kill them if they try to take any of the enemies prisoner. It's pretty crazy, but Luca actually agrees with this method, feeling that the idiots who aren't aware of their place do not belong in the Imperial Guard. On planet Novus, other forces are just bugs to the Empire, and our boy is convinced that everyone on the outside uses and deceives the Empire for their own gains. Ille quietly listens to Luca and even agrees with him, confirming that this was what they were taught. Just then, we see one of the targets that they have to wipe out mercilessly. Just beneath the cliff, there's a mother and child playing together. They have no idea that the Imperial guards are about to raid their outpost, the same way Luca has zero hesitation to lock in on them to begin their reign of fire. It does take too long for the Imperial forces to burn the outpost to the ground. Of course, the instruction was to kill every living thing from the Korite Alliance living in their territory, so Luca and his fellow trainees turn the place into a hellscape. Our boy walks through the fire, scanning the area for his next victims and confirms that none of the Korans are armed. Normally, this should make him feel a little sad about their actions, but they're at war, so all of his emotions have been tucked away into a vault somewhere far away along with his conscience. He gets to an area in the burning remains of the Korite outpost where he sees a little boy weeping behind a boulder. The child is hiding from the flames and the merciless Imperial guards that just showed him what war looks like. He sits there with his face in his hands and cries out for his mother, who is probably already now a burning corpse lying around somewhere. For the first time all day, Luca actually hesitates to kill one of the Korites. Seeing the innocent child sit there and weep helplessly reopens a part of him that had been locked in a while now. It starts to look like this weapon of war might actually have a conscience, because he actually hesitates to kill the boy. He can see fear all over the child, just like the flames that are about to swallow him. Clearly, this boy is a non-combatant with zero resistance, so killing him in cold blood becomes extremely difficult for our hero. At the moment, he starts to wish that the boy even had a gun or shown the slightest level of being a threat, because he truly does want to end his life. Unfortunately, nobody can be spared, and this instruction rings constantly like in his head like a bell. The terrifying image of the commander telling them not to take any prisoners plays over and over in his mind, reminding our boy that he has to kill all the enemies. All of the training that led to this moment has taught him one thing so far, which is that he should never hesitate to eliminate a threat found in their territory. After all, they're just insects that sap up the Empire's supplies. With this in mind, Luca is given the motivation to finally take out the innocent helpless child crying out for his mother. The ruthless Imperial guard in training takes out his sword and thrusts it forcefully. He uses so much force that it drives his sword right through the thick boulder behind the boy as well, but surprisingly, he doesn't kill the child. The child can't believe it when he opens his eyes to see that he's still alive. He trembles in fear, looking absolutely confused because he's not sure what's going on right now. Just then, Luca whispers to him, telling him to pretend like he's dead. He leans over to the boy and informs him that playing dead is the only way that he'll even stand a chance of getting out of here alive. A bigger part of our boy's mind tells him that he's done the right thing, but the ruthless Imperial guard inside him keeps the feeling that he shouldn't let the child live. He is afraid of what would happen to him if headquarters were to ever find out about his actions. Heck, the senior guards might even kill him right here in the burning ruins if they catch him letting the boy go free. All of these thoughts run through Luca's mind as he walks away, but he doesn't stop walking even once. At some point, he begins to wonder if he should go back and finish the job. But before he can even turn back to see if the boy is still there, he hears a loud bang, and that's when we see the horrific reason behind the noise. The poor boy's head is blown off by the shot from another Imperial guard, and by the time Luca looks up, he's horrified to see Ille sitting at the top of a nearby tower. The blondie looks like he's been there for a while, and right now, he's shaking his head in disappointment as he holds out his smoking gun. Ille looks extremely disappointed in Luca for not finishing the job, and our boy begins to panic, wondering how long the guy has been sitting up there. Right now, our boy can already tell that the noble boy saw everything that he did. He's terrified for sure, but he quickly calms himself down because it's like he can see the reassuring look on his friend's face. He trusts Ille enough to know that the blondie won't report his hesitation, but he can't know if any other trainees saw what happened. If they did, that would be a real problem, and even though he trusts Ille, he still feels he should keep an eye on the noble boy just in case he decides to rat him out. He's still thinking about this when the noble boy is shot off the top of the towers with a powerful blast. Luca is so confused when he sees this because he didn't detect any armed threats around. But I guess this shocking twist just sums up what it means to be at war. His closest friend just got shot down, and before he can process it, the attacker responsible starts charging at him. The enemy emerges from the dust and smoke, wishing death upon all Accretians, and by the time Luca turns to face him, he's shocked because the man doesn't have a weapon. It appears that he's a sorcerer, but our boy doesn't have much experience with such opponents. He still doesn't understand how the guy managed to cause an explosion without any weapons, because the only explanation for this would be very problematic for the trainees. Another of the Imperial guards tries to attack the enemy from behind, but before he can land the hit, the man casually causes the trainee to explode. At this point, Luca's fears are confirmed because now he knows for a fact that this enemy is a Force user. He begins to tremble just thinking about the fact that there was a Force user hiding in their territory. The man is furious right now because the Imperial Guard just wiped out a group of innocent people. He informs Luca that this was a settlement and not a base, explaining that the people they just killed were only doing their best to live and not trying to cause any problems. Hearing this, Luca and the remaining trainees are shocked. He wonders if the captain knew about this, feeling that Ille would have avoided the damage he just suffered if they were informed ahead of time. Just then, we see the noble boy lying in pieces in the rubble. Parts of his machinated body are scattered all over the place, and it doesn't look likely that he'll make it out of this one alive. His right arm is gone, and his lower half is currently missing, which is never a good thing in battle. Ille calls out to Luca, admitting that he let his guard down. He claims that he has no excuse and takes responsibility for his own misfortune. But Luca actually feels more responsible. For this reason, he simply tells his buddy to get some rest, because he's about to take care of this Force user. Luca blames himself for Ille's condition, feeling that his hesitation is what caused this problem. So, he's determined to avenge his friend, and that shouldn't be too hard since he has learned countless times how to deal with a Force user. Luca is ready to do whatever it takes to make up for his mistake, so he orders the remaining trainees under him to disperse and take over the base while he faces the Force user. The moment he says this, all the other Imperial guards in training spread out, leaving Luca all by himself. The Force user is pissed when they try to get away, so he attempts to stop them, but while he's acting all tough, our boy begins to realize that this guy might just be acting as bait to buy time for his allies to get away. With this in mind, Luca begins to analyze the situation and plan his mode of attack. In order for one to use force, the user needs to perform a preparatory action. In this case, his opponent's action would be the hand signs he's been using. Luca feels that he should be able to react to the explosion as long as he can see a disruption in space just in time. With this technique, he's able to see the Force user's attacks and explosions before they even happen, allowing him to dodge all of the blasts without even getting a scratch. Our boy would very much prefer a battle of attrition, but there's no other choice right now. Even though there's a chance of his body collapsing from maintaining such a high-speed maneuver, he's determined to take the risk, knowing that he needs to attack while he's in this state. With this in mind, our boy goes even faster until he's way too fast to the opponent to even see him. In this state, he drives his sword into the enemy's body, and just like this, it looks as though the fight is over. Luca is convinced that he finally got the guy, but he quickly learns that it's not over when the Force user pumps him with an incredible surge of electricity. The power from the shock is so mighty that it shatters our boy's helmet and literally starts to destroy his body. His eyes widen in horror as the reality dawns on him. His life flashes before his eyes as it becomes clear that death is about to take him. Just when it looks like he's about to be killed by the shock, the Force user sees his face and ceases the attack. The old man weeps when he sees that the Imperial guard behind the mask is just a child, and in this brief moment of vulnerability, Luca finishes him off. Usually, he would feel accomplished after defeating such an opponent, but this time, he just feels fear and confusion. He knows that he would have died if the Force user had gone through with his attack. From what they've been taught, Korite is made up of fanatics that are beyond human comprehension, so he can't help but wonder why this man failed to kill him even after what he did to their settlement. While our boy is still trying to make sense of what just happened, the teachings of the Imperial Guard ring in his head once again, telling him to keep moving and not let his emotions consume him during battle. After all, this is all for the Empire, to kill those who threaten the safety of the Emperor, and the people of the Empire is the reason for the Imperial Guard's existence. At this point, Luke looks around him and sees the destruction they left in their wake. The settlement from a few moments ago is now a terrifying hellscape filled with the screams of their victims. For the first time, this young Imperial Guard is almost even terrified of himself, but I guess he can't let his emotions distract him now. The Imperial Guard's purpose is to kill for the Accretion Empire. This is what they were trained for. This is what they were made for. Nothing else matters. The scene shifts and the story catches up in the Accretion Hospital recovery room where the trainees have been since returning from their mission. Luca is currently in one of the recovery pods, and unsurprisingly, he's right next to his buddy Ille, who miraculously survived. The funny noble asks Luca how it feels to almost die, but our boy simply tells him to speak for himself since he's the one who was literally blown to pieces on the battlefield. Of course, the Joker knows this, but I guess he's just trying to lighten up the mood by laughing over his misfortune. Ille reveals that he got new arms and legs, then asks Luca how many of his body parts were changed. In response, our boy reveals that his back was broken, so he got titanium bones and artificial skin as replacements. He doesn't seem to mind though, since in this line of work, he's likely going to end up with a completely different body in a couple of years anyway. That being the case, he figures that it wouldn't hurt to get them a little earlier. Ille feels that the commander probably knew that there was a force user in the outpost, and feels that he didn't inform them because he was trying to test them. Luca agrees with him, suggesting that the senior guards didn't intervene because they figured the trainees could handle it. Thankfully, nobody was killed in action, but Ille finds this weird because he doesn't get how he and the other cadet who got blasted with the force attack head-on survived. He feels that it's a little too odd to be a coincidence and suggests that the force user didn't intend to kill them from the start. Hearing this, Luca's mind instantly flashes back to the man's last words. He was so shocked to see that he was just a child, and even though deep down, he was touched by the man's mercy, he feels that it was a mistake to let him live. As far as Luca is concerned, he's already a warrior, a soldier in fact, and he tries to convince himself that such pathetic mercy is the reason why the Korean will continue to die out. Our boy goes into a literal villain mode for a second there, but then he's suddenly drawn back to reality when Ille asks him why he spared the Korean child. From the look on the noble boy's face, you can tell that he's asking from a place of concern, but Lucy quickly snaps at him for talking too much, wondering if he got a new tongue too. For what it's worth, he claims that he made a mistake and vows that it will never happen again. Later, the trainees are addressed by a superior who informs them that they've now completed 2 years of the 4-year Imperial Guard training. He also informs them that there are now younger batches and urges them to be models for the new recruits. And he's particularly talking to Luca and Ille since they're the top students. He tells the two that they can aim to be centurions as well and encourages them to keep up the good work for the glory of the Emperor and his citizens. Ille acknowledges the advice, but Luca is still stuck on the centurion part. You see, the Imperial Guard is organized quite simply. There are 1,000 guardsmen, consisting of 10 centuries, all commanded by a chief centurion. The commander of the guards, the chief centurion, is also the centurion of the first century. And cadets like our boy, after finishing a full-body mechanization, are assigned to the lowest-ranking century, the 10th century. With all of this in mind, Luca can't help but dream of becoming the centurion of the 10th century because that way, he can make it big. Later, Ille and Luca engage in a sparring session to test out their new body parts, and as the combative exchange goes on, our boy can tell that the blondie got stronger with his new arm. Unfortunately, he still has weaknesses, and Luca doesn't hesitate to exploit them and bring the session to an end. With this, our boy has now successfully beaten his friend 124 times in 124 rounds. Ille really thought he was finally going to win this time, but our boy reminds him of the true importance of training, stating that there's more to getting stronger than just getting new parts. The noble boy noticed a change in his friend, claiming that Luca had become even more rigid since that speech. He figures that the whole centurion fixation seems to have impacted the ambitious young guard. Our boy doesn't even deny it, stating that he'd be accepted anywhere if he can garner enough experience serving as an Imperial Guard. On the other hand, Ille feels that Luca is already in a position where his birth no longer matters and suggests that he relax a little. In response, our boy reminds him that he's not a noble who has somewhere to return to if things in the Imperial Guard don't work out. Luca believes that he needs to keep climbing or else it will be all over for him. At this point, he calls Ille out for lacking drive despite being talented and asks him why he even wants to be a guardsman. At first, the blondie tries to joke about it but eventually reveals that he wanted to be a scholar, an archaeologist to study the ancient arcane civilization. Hearing this, Luca asks why he doesn't just go do that instead, so the noble boy reveals that it's banned in the Empire. Besides that, his family has a history of producing many generals, so they'd never let him do anything. Just then, Luca accuses Ille of being spoiled for being sad that he can't do what he wants. He tells the noble boy about the countless people in the slums who aren't guaranteed the next day, and most are deeply thankful whenever they get something to eat. Hearing Luca's response, Ille isn't too surprised because he already knows how one-minded his friend is. He's disappointed though, because he just told the guy a secret and got scolded in return. Unfortunately, our emotional tyrant of a protagonist still doesn't care about his feelings. He simply informs him that his secret is like criticism of the Empire, and that he'll be ruined if someone reports it. The blondie isn't too bothered, knowing that Lucas won't report him because he kept his secret. At this point, our boy claims that he only hesitated because his opponent was a non-combatant, stating that he'd still have gone back to finish off the child. Once again, Luca declares his loyalty to the Empire and the Emperor for seeing his talents. He states that the enemies of the Empire are his enemies as well, and then reminds Ille that he's not an exception. For some reason, the blondie has this trying conviction that Luca isn't the cold-hearted killing machine he also claims to be. He calls our boy a liar and then jumps down from the platform, stating that Luca would have tried to kill him already if his allegiance to the Empire truly surpassed simple loyalty. That being said, he casually walks away and once again tells Luca not to push himself too hard to impress the Empire. Our boy knows that Ille is right, so he's even more pissed at the idiot, feeling that the boy might just end up dead if he keeps taunting him so much. By the third year, the trainees are given another mission. This time, it's a reconnaissance. They're sent to an uninhabited neutral zone, and there, Ille comes across an arcane site, and he's so excited to get an energy response despite it being millions of years old. He thinks it's so cool that there were civilizations that explored the stars before humans even existed, but Luca isn't exactly interested. He's drawn a line, but his blondie friend doesn't ever hesitate to cross it to piss him off. The noble boy literally starts caressing the structure, so Luca warns him not to get careless. This reconnaissance is part of their training, and if they meet another force while out here, it's going to be a fight. Unfortunately, Ille doesn't look like he plans to take anything other than arcane sites seriously right now, which just pisses Luca off even more. Just then, someone at the back chimes in, talking about how the present exists because of the past. He claims that the records allow them to predict the future, and judging by the fella's tone, Luca immediately figures that he's a historical nerd just like Ille. This trainee is Claude Ramonis, and it doesn't take long before our boy starts shooting death glares at him. His family isn't as big as the Karthakas, but it's still very respected. Claude suddenly asks Luca if he's seeing anyone, and our boy instantly cocks his fists, ready to punch in the guy's face if he takes a step closer. Claude understands his worry and reveals that he was only asking because he wants to match him with his little sister. Luca simply responds by stating that he's from an orphanage, but Claude doesn't care about that because he's sure that Luca will be his superior one day. He wants Luca to date his sister so he can be on the guy's good side one day. At the same time, Ille teases our boy about how popular he has become, but the fun and jokes come to an end when they sense a biological response not too far away. They all suit up in a flash and go into stealth mode. Luca decides that Ille's group will take cover and support from the rear while him and Claude stay in front. Right now, they don't know what they're up against, but they can tell that it's not going to be an easy opponent. They hide behind trees and watch carefully to see what forces they just detected, and after a while, they're horrified to learn that it's a Korite paladin. This huge silver knight is apparently a deadly opponent because the moment he spots the trainees, Luca tells him men to run for their lives. They attempt to escape, but before they can get far, the Korite paladin launches an attack which takes Claude out in the blink of an eye. Luca is horrified when he sees this because it all happened so fast, and to make matters worse, this formidable opponent is just getting started with them. I'm gonna stop here for the first episode of this series, but I'm really curious to know what everyone's reaction to it has been so far. I think this story has great potential to be amazing, and I really want to cover all of it very soon. So of course, if you guys enjoyed it, definitely be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing so you can stay updated on all my future uploads. Until next time.